All right, this is Jeffrey Crivero, and I'm conducting an oral history with Patricia Boulware. The interview is being conducted at the Zellwood Community Center in Zellwood, Florida, on Saturday, March 25th, 2023. Mrs. Boulware, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Would you begin by telling us a little bit about your family and your family history?
My family came from Ohio. We were in central Ohio, a group of farmers. My Uncle Grant, during World War II, was a pilot, and he taught other pilots to fly. And after the war, he went into crop dusting, and he came to Florida to crop dust. Well, after he'd been here a couple of years, he came back to Ohio and convinced his brothers that they should come to Florida to farm. During the war, my Uncle Calvin was with the Air Force. Well, it started out as the Army and then it became the Army Air Corps or whatever. So that's where he learned a lot about electrical wiring and that sort of thing. Uncle Marlin was with Patton in the Battle of the Bulge, and he didn't think he was coming home. Dad was the fourth of the four sons, and Dad never got there. They gave him a draft notice, but fortunately the war ended before he had to go. So in 1955, Dad came down, and I believe Marlin. They had 40 acres of rented property and one tractor. They made some money. They tried it again the next year. And then Uncle Calvin came down. He decided he would come. And in the meantime, Calvin was in Ohio, and he built a radish harvester, and he tested it out on the Burma brothers who were there in Ohio. And they had some ground, and I believe it was similar to the muck is, and it was a peaty type of ground. And he perfected his radish machine, and he has a patent for it somewhere. This picture right here is of the four brothers standing in front of it. There's an article in this Suffolk County Farm News talking about mechanical harvesting. A lot of the things that came to the Zellwood muck after the war were mechanical things that they hadn't been able to do before. You couldn't put a team of horses on the muck because they just couldn't make it go. And so during the war they had perfected the rubber tires, and so those rubber tires would keep you above the muck and keep you from sinking. And Pounds in Winter Garden was the guy who really had those and got the tractors in and got people using that and making it go. And after a few years of farming, they decided that they would make a pre-cooler. Uncle Calvin and Harry D. Reich worked on the pre-cooler, and Uncle Calvin designed it. And the original design was that the corn would come in and it would go down through these belts and come out the other side, and by the time it came out on the other side it was cold and it was ready to go into the cooler. And the pre-cooler, or the actual, here we go, you know, COVID. The cold room. Anyway, when it was in the cold room, then it stayed there, and we had either trains coming in and taking it by the train load out, or we had it going out on trucks, and it was called Grade A Fancy, and it meant that it only had a certain number of kernels possibly missing at the top of the corn cob, or you couldn't use it, out it went. And so I got my first experience of packing corn when I was 28 years old, and we couldn't get any offshore labor. So they packed all day, and then we packed part of the night. And I learned to pack corn next to a woman who was packing corn, because I would hear her hit that corn cob on the blade and cut the shank off, and then she'd throw it in the box. Well, by the end of the week, I was making piecework. I had found it out. I had gotten that rhythm going, and I could put my 55 to 60 ears of corn in that box. I did have an inspector. Oh, everything was grade A. I mean, it was fancy. It was graded by corn inspectors from the Florida Department of Health or somebody. Anyway, he said to me, "You're counting every ear?" And I said, "Yeah, my name's on this box." And he said, "Well, I know you're not packing light." Sometimes they would put the ears in on angle and be able to put fewer ears into the box but get paid for it. So he kind of laughed about that. And then my career was over, because we were done with the corn for the season, and I didn't have to go back anymore. Let's see. Later, we went into vacuum cooling. We had vacuum coolers, and also we had a radish line. And the radish line was the same sort of thing. The radishes came in, they were sorted on belts. If they were too small or whatever, they went out. They were put into bags. The bags were put into boxes, and they were in the cooler. We had a few hurricanes in, let's see, 57, I think it's 62. In 57, I believe, I don't know what the name of the hurricane was. It wasn't as big as some of them, but Daddy took us for a drive afterward, and there was a place called Sunny Pines up the road, and it was a mobile home park. Well, those pines had cut those mobile homes in halves or in thirds. It was something to see. I don't know how those people, I don't know where they went. At that time, I don't think they tried to get you to go somewhere for your safety like they did later. We, however, had a whole cold room full of employees, and that, because the walls were, I don't know, 18 inches, whatever thick, and so nothing was going to get them. Now, if they had anything to go home to, was another story, but we put them in there for their safety, and we got through those things. The state of Florida decided it wanted to buy out the farmers, and so eventually they did buy out the farms and close them down, and now it's a bird sanctuary. And let's see, I told you about the crop dusting, and I told you about the
What was about the crop dusting? I think it might have been before we
did I
started.
skip? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Uncle Grant, you know, I told you that he had come here to dust. Well, as it progressed, the dusting turned into spraying, and we did spraying. All of the crop dusters basically went to spray, not just us. And so different groups went. And in the old days, the crop dusters kind of followed the crops too. So he would be down here in Florida, and he might be in Michigan by September. And we had a friend, Bing, who was a duster, and he went to Traverse City, Michigan, and we went to see him, and he was doing the cherries and stuff in that area. The corn machines, we built corn machines. We don't have a patent for our corn machine, but it was the same style. You went through, you cut the ears off, and so when we were done, people wanted to rent those corn machines. So there's nothing like going out with your machine. So some of the machines went to Colorado, and for each machine to go, they had to have somebody go with it. I spent my 16th birthday in Buffalo, New York, on my way to Canada, and it was raining. It is not the best 16th birthday I ever want to remember, but that's how that fell out. Let's see.
Did your Uncle Calvin, was it your Uncle Calvin that went to Panama, that learned?
Oh, he was in the Army, Air Corps, or whatever, and that's Panama. That's where he learned electrics and the other things, and that's where he got some of his training that he used, and that's how he put the pre-cooler together, how he put the radish line together, how he put the carrot line together, all that kind of thing. And so Uncle Calvin was quite the guy. I had wonderful uncles. We had very happy, in the summer we would go to Ohio and see all of our relatives in Ohio and visit for a couple of months, and then we'd come back and it was time to go back to school, time to plant. We would plant the first of our corn in February, on February 20th, because that was Daddy's birthday, and that's why I remember so vividly. And some years it was fine, and some years it wasn't so fine. We would have freezes or whatever. And then we had some trouble with the crows. The crows would want to come in and take up the little the little corn as it was coming out of the ground. So at first we used to have some of the employees out there with rifles, and they'd shoot it and the crows would fly, you know, this kind of thing. Then we got those canisters, and the canisters would go off, ba-boom, and they'd fly away kind of thing, and you didn't have to worry about that. I used to go with Daddy sometimes down to the farm if it was going to be raining and he needed to change the boards and that kind of thing in the canals. We never wanted him to go alone. We wanted somebody to go with him because the canals were wide and they were deep. Dragline operators had dug the canals, and the roads down through there were moral, and you could slide right off in the canal if you weren't careful, and you could sink. It was not pretty. I was on the road and I was going to do a three-point turn, and my brother says, "No, just go right on, you'll be fine." Yeah, right. Somebody came by with a tractor and pulled us out. Those were the days, you know, we were family. They decided, the different farmers wanted to get together, and they were going to have a party house, so to speak. So they applied to be the Muckrats. Well, Disney was coming, and the state of Florida would not allow them to have the Muckrats. So by gosh, they became the Zellwood Country Club. This little building out in the middle of nowhere was no more a country club than anything, but Disney had done us in. And then later, one of the reasons I have a bad taste of Disney is because this little lady down there in Kissimmee had her business, and she was Mickey's hair salon or something, and she'd been there forever, and they came in and wanted her to change her name after all these years. And it was after Disney had opened, like 10 or 15 years. It wasn't like they did it when they were first coming to town. And I thought, yeah, that wasn't fair to her. And she wasn't capitalizing on them. So I went to school at Apopka High School, and I spent 3 years over here. We lived on Sadler Road just out of Zellwood, and at one point they bused us all across the county line to Lake County, and we went to school in Mount Dora. Then they decided that Lake County wasn't going to pay to educate us, and so they put us back here, and that's when I went to Zellwood Elementary. And when I got to Zellwood Elementary, it was a new school, and it was all concrete blocks. Earlier they had a wooden one, and I believe it was burned, or that kind of thing. So anyway, I went there for 3 years, and I knew all the kids there. There weren't a lot of us. There was like, I don't know, 20 or 30 of us in one class. But when I went to Apopka, I went to Dream Lake for a year, and then everybody from Zellwood came to Apopka, couple of other feeder schools, but I had a leg up because I knew part of the people. I didn't have to make all new friends. I had some. So that was a lot of fun. I went to the Methodist church next door, and I was there until I graduated and went off to college. And my mother had me take shorthand, typing, and bookkeeping, because I was college prep stuff otherwise. And when I got my first job, sure enough, I was typing and doing shorthand and bookkeeping, and eventually I became a full-charge bookkeeper, and those were the days of no computers. This was all posting machines and that kind of thing. And the years have gone on. Now, my mother's still living. My dad and his brothers are gone. And the farm is a bird sanctuary now, and you can drive through. The pump house is still on the lake so that they can pump water in and out. And I understand if you get there at dawn, the gators are chasing the shad, and it's quite a show. I remember, I think it was my 15th birthday. No, it was Daddy's birthday. I was 15. Anyway, one of the men had been putting out bait, and he said that he had found the biggest rattlesnake he had ever seen. So naturally, we had to all load up and go rattlesnake hunting on Daddy's birthday. And sure enough, we found that sucker. And there I am, and I'm standing there, and the thing is about it, the toe of my shoe curled up. I have never broad jumped backwards in my life like I did then, and I'll never do it again, I promise you. But we shot the thing, and we have a picture of me holding it. It had 6 rattlers and a button. It was not your biggest rattlesnake, but it was not really anything to sneeze at. So no, they didn't lie to Daddy when they ran all the way back to the barn because they were afraid. I would have been afraid too. And so, do you have any other things to spur my...
Sure. Let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite things about growing up in the community.
Favorite things.
What do you love about your community? What are some of the things
Well,
that
you
you
can
like?
always count on people, and you kind of knew things about them, and 40 years, well, for instance, my little boy was going to go to play t-ball, and so I get there to sign up, and here's this girl I played flute with in the high school band, and she's sitting right there, and so I knew that Jerry Blackwater Prizer was going to take care of Johnny. I didn't have to worry. And the first day of school, oh, Mom, I'm fine. The Prizers are here, and off he goes. Didn't bat an eyelash because he knew people. And they were basically kind, nice people. No real airs. You weren't better than the other. They weren't better than you. And a lot of them were related. Sometimes you had to be careful because you might offend somebody. But they were very nice, very nice. And they still are. I go to dinners and I see them, and we talk about old times like this. It's brought out a lot of memories. And we have some elderly ladies that have lost their husbands, and so you want to take them to the dinners, and people go out of their way for you. So that's what's really nice about the community.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen since back then to now?
Well, the biggest changes, I would say, is the changes in between the loss of the farms because having been bought out, so there's no farming and no opportunities to farm. There were opportunities for people to actually harvest the vegetables and that kind of thing. And then there were the people that had machine shops, and they built the machinery that we used. they had a big auction, and I mean, they came from everywhere and bought up all our stuff and took it everywhere. A lot of it went to Texas, that kind of thing. And then the citrus, we've had the canker, now the greening, and so the citrus is gone. I don't think you can even grow one in your backyard, to tell you the truth. It's sad. When I was a kid now, everybody had fruit trees galore. Oh, and Plymouth Citrus, I think it was a field trip that you took. And they had a tree, and on that tree, it was sour orange, which apparently is the rootstock you have to use here in Florida. And they grafted every kind of fruit you could think of. I mean, we had orange and lime and pink grapefruit and red grapefruit and white grapefruit, and, you know, every branch was a different branch. And so that was impressive to a kid in the 5th grade, that kind of thing. But all the citrus is gone. And now, I've known, okay, we had beetles, and the pines are dying from the beetles, and now the palms are dying. And I don't know what is killing the palms, but it's like, okay, this one's gone, and that one's gone, and the next one's gone. We're gonna be treeless. The people are worried about it, and now I guess they need to be, because it's just not like it used to be. And we worry about our water too, because we're selling so much water all over Florida in this bottled water. What are we gonna drink? And it's dry right now. We really need a good rain. We don't need a hurricane, but we can use a good rain. Anything else?
Yeah, that was great. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or expand on? Do you have any final thoughts for us?
I think Zellwood is a wonderful place. I will be here with the Zellwoodians as long as we last. I was sorry when we lost Margie. Margie was the spark plug of the Historical Society. We had just had our 25th anniversary dinner, and everything was wonderful. And so Charlie's really working hard to keep the museum going and to replace Margie. And so in a way, it's I'm getting to the point where I'm at 72, one of the oldest ones still here. However, I did bring Miss Honey, and she's 82, I think. So, okay, I think that's it.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time and speaking with us. This has been great. This has been Jeffrey Crivero with Patricia Boulware. That's right. On March 25th, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.